In the last 6 episodes here on this channel, we talked about all the insecure attachment styles that often are a consequence of a traumatic childhood. Around 40% of the population belong to that group of insecurely attached people, according to attachment expert Heidi Priebe. But that also means that at the same time, the majority, so 60% of us, are actually securely attached. And while securely attached people mistype as anxious, avoidant, or fearful avoidant, it's highly interesting to look at those 10 signs today that you're a securely attached person who may attract healthy relationships. So let's talk about all the lucky ones. Welcome to today's episode. My name is Robert, and this video is based on my own experience, research, and therapy work. I am not a healthcare professional myself. Instead, I share a client's perspective here on this channel. And for everyone who is looking for more in-depth resources for working through complex trauma, I share the most significant learnings and practical exercises from years of therapy in our premium community. And you can get access today at understandable.net/join. This video today is video number 7 in a 4 double part series on attachment styles. So 8 videos in total, 2 on each attachment style. And in the first 2 episodes, we already talked about 10 signs that you might have an avoidant attachment style and how to cope with that one. In the second double episode, we talked about the 10 signs of an anxious attachment style and how to manage this one. Then in the third double episode, we talked about 10 signs that you might have a fearful avoidant / disorganized attachment style, which is often mistyped as the avoidant or anxious attachment style. And we also talked about solutions and approaches for this style. And today in episode number 7, we were talking about all the lucky ones who might have a secure attachment style. And in the next and last video, we also talk about how securely attached people can help us insecurely attached people to heal. And to get a broader overview of all the 4 attachment styles, I also highly recommend you watching our episode on complex trauma and the 4 attachment styles, and I will link all the videos in the description below every episode of this series as well, and you find them as well in the attachment style playlist here on this channel. I want to clarify a bunch of things about the secure attachment style here at first. Firstly, there is this phenomenon that many people who are actually securely attached believe that they are avoidantly, anxiously, or fearful avoidantly attached. And this is a result often out of relationships they had with people who are insecurely attached themselves. And therefore, so the securely attached people, for example, felt that they need, for example, to set super strong boundaries, or maybe that closeness felt like too much for them, but actually they dealt with an anxiously attached person in that scenario. Or they felt a bit needy and clingy and actually dealt with an avoidantly attached person in that scenario. So remember that all people, so also securely attached people, show anxious or avoidant tendencies in some circumstances. So it depends with whom you're in a relationship with. For example, when you are with an anxious or with an avoidantly attached person, then you might also show the opposite behaviors of that, even as a securely attached people. And if I would summarize the secure attachment style basically in one single sentence, I would say people with a secure attachment style just don't get triggered so much and so easily as people with an insecure attachment style. Another thing which is important to know about attachment styles in general is that your attachment style is not your personality type, like for example in the Myers-Briggs theory. Okay, so attachment styles are rather learned relational patterns that we learn through our experiences through our life. And the goal for those with insecure attachment is usually, if you want to move towards a secure or more secure and safe attachment style, which then predicts healthier relationships, more emotional resilience, and overall well-being. And the question is, of course, how to move from an insecurely attached style to a securely attachment style. And we will explore that in the next and last episode of this series. But today, let's also focus on the question how a secure attachment actually looks and feels like. So here's sign number 1 of a secure attachment style. You understand that other people's emotions are not a reflection of you and you don't take them personally. This first sign is one of the most significant indicators for a secure attachment style. And this is because securely attached individuals don't assume responsibility for other people's emotions, but insecurely attached people do so. They can empathize without absorbing another person's distress, frustration, or negativity. And this is where insecurely attached people often struggle a lot with to set healthy boundaries around. Instead of reacting emotionally or assuming they've done something wrong, securely attached people remain calm, supportive, and objectively in emotionally charged situations, which by the while they are valued a lot for by others. The causes for that are simple. They understand that their feelings are separate from other people's emotions and therefore don't feel the constant need to fix or manage others to feel secure. They also have a more stable sense of self-worth, unlike, for example, the anxious types who internalize rejection or mood shifts as personal failures. Securely attached people don't tie their value to external validation. Securely attached people also had many experiences of co-regulation when they have been young. Their caregivers usually help them calm down in distressing moments so they don't get triggered by others' emotions so easily. Caregivers also appeared safe and stable instead of unstable and threatening to them. And let's talk through an example here as well. Imagine the following scenario. A partner of a securely attached person comes home from work in a very bad mood. A securely attached person in this scenario notices that their partner is frustrated, but they doesn't assume that it's their fault. So they might say, "You seem like you've had a pretty rough day. Want to talk about it?" If their partner now declines to talk, they still respect their space instead of feeling rejected or pushing for reassurance. They also don't get defensive or withdraw emotionally, which for example avoidance might do, or they also don't spiral into anxiety about being unloved, which an anxious type might do. If their partner's moods affects the dynamic for a prolonged period, they feel comfortable bringing it up calmly and say something like, "I've noticed that you seem down a lot lately. Is there something that I can do to support you?" And sign number 2, you address issues and conflict directly and calmly, which is here closely tied to what we discussed before in sign number 1. And that's pretty typical for a securely attached individual. They handle conflict with direct, clear, and calm communication rather than resorting to avoidance, passive aggression, or emotional dysregulation and outbursts, which are so typical for the insecure types. They believe deep down that conflict is a normal part of relationships and that open discussions lead to stronger connections rather than threatening them. I also explained that conflict even builds strong intimacy and connection in relationships in this video about people-pleasing and honest conflict, which I will also link to you down below this episode. Now, secures have this ability because they have a general lack of fear around conflict. They just don't associate disagreements with abandonment like the anxious types would do, or with control like the avoidant types would do. They may also have early experiences of resolution. They likely saw caregivers resolving issues through open discussions rather than explosions or silence, which is how the secure person does it, the ideal way to resolve conflict. The next reason I would like to mention is something that insecurely attached people just can't even imagine. Okay? They have confidence in relationship stability. Now, secures just assume conflict won't ruin a relationship. Instead, it's an opportunity for clarity and connection. And this is not going to happen for people with an insecure attachment style. No. And they also don't feel the need for manipulation, unlike, for example, fearful avoidants who test partners or anxiously attached people who seek reassurance through indirect means. Secure individuals simply say what they need and trust the other person to respond appropriately. I also have a great example scenario here for sign number 2, and in this scenario, a person didn't check in after work. A secure response here would be, hey, when you forgot to check in after work, I felt a little left out. Could we try to be more consistent about that? Direct, calm, and solution-focused approach. A response from an anxiously attached person might be, why didn't you text me? Do you even care about me? So it's more emotionally reactive and charged, and they seek reassurance here. An avoidant response may be they ignore the issue entirely, they pull away emotionally, so it's more avoiding discomfort in that scenario and shutting down. And a fearful avoidant response might be, I don't even care that you didn't text me, but I guess I just expect too much. So it's a hot and cold approach, indirect and defensive. Secure individuals prioritize communication over assumptions and resolution over blame. And now sign number 3, you welcome love in all forms, giving and receiving with ease. So in the next one, securely attached individuals express affection freely without any fear of rejection and can receive love without discomfort. Doesn't that seem like a beautiful gift? Maybe you're thinking that right now when you're insecurely attached. And yes, it is. It is truly a beautiful gift. Insecures just don't feel the need to earn affection or keep people at arm's length, making their relationships mutually fulfilling and emotionally balanced. And it makes sense, because they often had a consistent emotional attunement in childhood. They were taught that love is freely given and not something to be earned or withdrawn as punishment. They also don't associate love with proving themselves of being good enough. And they don't equate vulnerability with weakness or fear of being hurt for opening up. Also, unlike, for example, the avoidant type, they don't feel suffocated by closeness, nor do they fear that love will come with unrealistic demands. And an anxiously attached person, on the other hand, might overgive in relationships and feel uncomfortable receiving love, fearing that they must earn it or reciprocate immediately. Secures just don't behave like this. Sign number 4, you empathize and connect deeply with others while maintaining emotional balance. Another positive aspect of being a securely attached person is that securely attached individuals have a strong capacity for empathy without becoming overwhelmed by other people's emotions at the same time. And this is, by the way, a typical thing for highly sensitive people as well with weak boundaries. They become overwhelmed easily because they tune into others too much and then, can't really set boundaries there. Now, secures can sit with someone else's pain, offer support and show deep understanding without taking on that pain as their own. They don't feel the need to merge with others' emotions, like, for example, anxiously attached people would do, nor do they disconnect from their own entirely, like the avoidant type would do. Instead, the secure person strikes a healthy balance of compassion and emotional boundaries. And the biggest factor for that is their healthy emotional regulation, meaning that they feel for others, but they don't get lost in their emotions at the same time. Another factor is that their secure sense of self, though they don't see other people's struggles as a reflection of their own worth or their responsibility to fix, how an anxiously attached person would do it, for example. And they also have crystal clear boundaries, which give them the opportunity to offer support while maintaining their own emotional well-being. And they usually had many early experiences of containment, meaning they likely had caregivers who validated their emotions but also modeled how to manage feelings without becoming overwhelmed. Sign number 5, you embrace both independence and interdependence in relationships. Mark this one, securely attached people have a healthy interdependence in their relationships. Let me explain that. It means that they are comfortable of being close with feeling like they're losing themselves, and at the same time, they can be independent without fearing abandonment or guilt, right? They balance connection with autonomy naturally. They understand that relationships involve mutual support and trust, and they are not afraid to depend on others or being dependent on. Let's compare that with the insecure types. Anxiously attached individuals may become overly dependent on their partners. On the other hand, avoidantly attached individuals may reject dependency entirely and insist on doing everything alone. Secures embrace inter and independence because they had a bunch of early experiences of reliable caregiving in their lives. They grew up knowing that support was available and needed, though they never developed a fear of relying on others. They also don't seek out dependency out of a fear, but rather as a natural part of healthy relationships. So there is not the constant search for a missing puzzle piece here, for example, as I described in this episode about limerence, which I will also link to you below. So to clarify this fifth sign, let's take a look at how different attachment styles handle support and dependency. Which beliefs do the insecurely attached styles, and which belief does the securely attached person have? Now, the secure person has the belief that I can take care for myself, but I also trust my partner to support me when I need it. And I will do that at the same time for them. So, healthy interdependence. An anxious person might believe I need my partner to always be there for me. If they don't respond right away, I start to panic. So that's over-dependency. An avoidant person might think I don't need anyone, relying on others is weak. I have to handle everything on my own. So there is a fear of dependency. And the fearful avoidant person might think I want someone to be there for me, but if I depend on them too much, I will lose my independence. Maybe I should push them away before I get too close to them. So it's conflicted between needing support and also fearing it at the same time. Sign number 6, you trust yourself and your instincts when it comes to relationships. Now, people with a secure attachment style trust their instincts when choosing partners, setting boundaries, and navigating emotions. They don't second-guess themselves constantly or feel the need for external validation in their relationship decisions. And this is fundamentally different to insecurely attached people. But it makes totally sense for them because they usually grew up in an environment where their emotions and needs were validated rather than dismissed or ridiculed. They therefore developed a strong internal compass because the caregivers encouraged autonomy while providing support. They developed a deep internal trust that they will be okay even if they make mistakes. So for a securely attached person, there is no underlying anxiety that a failed relationship means they are fundamentally flawed in any way. And compared to the other styles, an anxious attached person, for example, might obsess over their partner's actions, constantly seeking reassurance that they are loved in a way. And an avoidant person might ignore their own emotional needs and dismiss their intuition to maintain emotional distance. In the end, a secure person would just trust their gut. If something feels off, they listen to that feeling. And if they feel comfortable in a relationship, they don't sabotage it by overthinking or withdrawing out of fear. Sign number 7, you set clear goals and collaborate in a way that respects your needs and other needs. Okay, this one is pretty interesting. So, securely attached individuals are skilled at setting meaningful goals for themselves while also being able to collaborate with others effectively. They can balance independence and interdependence, as we learned before, making decisions that align with both their personal aspirations and their relationships. So remember anxiously attached people from the last episodes who may abandon their own goals to prioritize relationships, or remember avoidants who may struggle to integrate relationships into their life goals so they can only make big life decisions totally on their own. Now, why is that easy for securely attached people? Well, first of all, they have a strong sense of self-awareness. They understand what they want and feel confident in pursuing it. They also don't let stress, fear, or insecurity derail their long-term goals. An ability they have is also that they can prioritize their ambitions without neglecting their relationships or vice versa. In their childhood, they probably had caregivers who supported their autonomy and also taught them the value of teamwork and relationships. Sign number 8. You naturally seek and accept support when needed. Securely attached individuals feel comfortable both seeking and accepting help in relationships. They believe that asking for support is normal and reciprocal rather than a burden or a sign of weakness, what avoidance, for example, might think. For avoidantly attached people, asking for support and help never was a safe option in their relationships, so they don't even know that it's possible and don't do that. This secures to form healthy, interdependent relationships where needs are met without guilt or fear. Secures also had the privilege often here that early caregivers responded reliably to their needs, teaching them that asking for help leads to support rather than rejection or criticism. They also bring a lot of trust into their relationships because they believe others are generally dependable and willing to help. Unlike avoidants, for example, who assume they must rely only on themselves, and unlike anxious types who may feel needy or unworthy, secure individuals see needs as natural and valid. At the same time, they of course also value autonomy but understand that no one thrives alone, so relationships are about mutual support. And I want to underline this 8th sign by another practical example here to understand how the secure person would react. In this scenario, a person is facing stress at work, so imagine that scenario. How would a securely attached person react to that scenario? Well, instead of bottling up all the stress, like the avoidant would do, for example, or panicking about being overwhelmed, like an anxious person would do, they reach out to, for example, a trusted friend or their partner or family member. They express their struggles openly, saying something like, "I'm feeling really stressed about work right now. Would you mind talking it through with me?" If the other person is unable to help, they don't take it personally in that scenario. They simply seek alternative support because they have alternative resources. Self-care is an option, another friend, therapy is another option. They have a lot of options and opportunities to re-regulate themselves. When offered practical or emotional help, they accept it without guilt or resistance, knowing that relationships thrive on give and take. Sign number 9, you feel secure and in your comfort zone, whether you're single or in a relationship. To understand this 9th sign, we have to understand that securely attached individuals feel whole and content when they are single or in a relationship. Their sense of identity and their self-worth does not depend on a partner, and they don't feel desperate to be in a relationship nor afraid of commitment. Healthily attached individuals view relationships as a healthy addition to their lives, not as something that defines or completes them. They have a stable sense of self independently from their relationships. That's really important to understand. And that means that they don't rely on relationships for validation, unlike, for example, the anxious type would do, or they also don't fear of losing themselves in a relationship like avoidance would do. They enjoy their own company and personal pursuits, but also appreciate emotional closeness and connection. And they have a balanced emotional regulation. I talked about this before. They know and have a lot of resources to re-regulate themselves. And the consequence of that is that they don't feel empty or lost when they're single or in a relationship. And this is possible for them because they had early experiences of security. they likely had caregivers who modeled balanced relationships by also encouraging individuality. Fear of loss and commitment are foreign terms to them. Let's also see how different attachment styles think about being single versus being in a relationship. That's going to be interesting. So, a secure person would think, I enjoy being in a relationship, but I also love my independence. I don't need a partner to feel whole, but if I meet the right person, great. So that's the balance, that the stable and the no urgency of fear approach here. Please do this one. We can all learn this, okay? The anxious person, what would they think? They would think, I hate being single and it makes me feel like I'm unlovable. I feel lost without a partner. So they seek validation through relationships and they fear abandonment in a way. The avoidant person would say, I prefer being single. Relationships feel like they suffocate me and I don't want to lose my freedom and my independence. So they have a fear of intimacy here. They have self-sufficiency as a defense mechanism and therefore don't really like commitment and relationships. And the fearful avoidant person would say, I want love, but I also push people away. So I feel lonely when I'm single, but I freak out when someone gets too close. And again, that's the push-pull dynamic here, a big inner conflict and pretty ambivalent and confusing to them. Sign number 10. You bounce back with strength and wisdom after relationship challenges. Now, last but not least, secures have a healthy attitude towards challenges in their relationships. And those challenges come for all of us from time to time, whether we're securely or insecurely attached, that's for sure. And what's also important to understand here is that, of course, securely attached people also generally experiences pain and emotional pain in general in relationships like anyone else does. But they don't internalize rejection as a sign of personal failure. And that's the difference here. They allow themselves to grieve, but ultimately move forward with confidence, self-worth, and optimism for the future. They approach conflict with a sense of balance, with patience and emotional regulation. And they see disagreements as a normal part of relationships and believe that issues can be worked through without threatening the bond. That's the fundamental difference here. So they behave like this because they were taught that their self-worth isn't dependent on relationships. A breakup doesn't entirely shatter their self-esteem. So they also trust that they will find love again. They don't cling to relationships that much out of desperation or assume that they have lost their only chance at love. Often they had an early exposure to healthy conflict resolution, meaning they likely saw adults model calm discussions rather than extreme fights or emotional withdrawal. And they also often had a pronounced problem-solving mindset. They focus on finding a resolution than assigning blame or avoiding the issue altogether. How does that look like in the other attachment styles? Well, an anxiously attached person might obsess over the breakup, stalk their ex social media and seek closure repeatedly. An avoidantly attached person might pretend that they don't really care, numb their emotions, or quickly jump into a new relationship as a distraction. So we all saw that, or we all know those people. Don't judge them, but we know those examples, and this is why they do that. And oppositely, the securely attached people will allow themselves to feel the pain of loss, to seek support if needed, and then move forward knowing that the right relationship will come in time. And this is truly healthy strengths and the belief that the world is absolutely full of love. Now, after hearing these 10 signs, do you believe that you actually have a secure attachment style? Even if you predicted you have an avoidant or anxious attachment style, for example, this might be true for many. And if you want to be sure, take the test. I recommend that from the Attachment Project. I really like this. Link is down below. It's just a quick quiz so you can find out and get more certain about your actual attachment style. And now the good thing as well. As I said, attachment styles are not like the Myers-Briggs personality types. So they are not predetermined in any way. insecure types therefore can transform into more secure types. And how to become a securely attached person and live healthier relationships is what we will discuss in the next and last episode of this series. And if you want to start right now, I also kindly want to remind you that we have a premium community for exactly that. So I created this concept here of the pyramid for working through and resolving symptoms of childhood trauma and attachment wounds through 6 stages in total, and especially the courses of level 2, 3, and 4, where you can learn how to feel and express your emotions better, how to communicate needs, how to set healthier boundaries. They help you tremendously with transforming an insecure attachment style to a more secure and healthier. You can join the platform today. Just go to understandable.net/join. Also put the first link in the description below. And now, what do you think? Have you mistyped before as an insecurely attached person and now saw that you are actually securely attached? I'm pretty curious to hear your stories. Leave me a comment below, and if you want to support the podcast, subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and I see you next time for another episode here on the channel. Have a great day.